So we realize this approach that produces our objects, stores one in user 1, one in user 2, it creates a big issue. Our functions that, yeah, hooray, are available right on our object, success, but look, shit, we've got copies of them. And they're all the same function. And if you've got 1,000 functions, we've got a copy of each of those functions on every single user object. This is going to take millions of lines of memory when we don't need to. We just have a single version of that function. What would be our solution? Store our increment function in just one object. Let's imagine we could sort of store it in just one object. Let's call it, I don't know, store of functions. Let's call it function store. And in that one object, suppose there we were to store the increment functionality, and somehow, if I didn't, and then not store it on each of these objects, keep these objects clear, and somehow if I weren't to find on my user 2 or my user 1 object the increment function, somehow JavaScript would know to go and look instead in this function store where I have my single copy of that function. Store the increment function in just one object and have the interpreter, when we do something like user2 dot increment, go look up at user2. There's no increment function on it. We don't want a unique increment function on user2 objects, but instead look up to this other object shared to check if increment's there. Oh, it is, and run that functionality. That's going to be our. What about that as an approach? Sound like a good approach? Everyone together, volubly for our online audience. Sound like a good approach?
Yes.
Controlling personality. All right, good. But how can we make that link? What's that famous word? People like to shout out words that might or might not be right. How might we make that link?
Bond.
Bond. Okay, it's definitely a bond. What sort of bond?
A reference.
Reference.
An inheritance.
What's the special word?
Lexical scope.
No. Shout as many words as you like.
Backpack.
Backpack. No, not backpack.
Inheritance.
What's that favorite word you heard about in JavaScript?
Prototype.
Prototype. Exactly. Good job. We're going to see that all play out though. Using the prototypal nature of JavaScript, solution 2 in full, we are going to somehow use I said that we've seen all the features of JavaScript. There's one more. It's called its prototypal nature, which is that when I call a method on an object, I first go look at that object. If I don't find on that object the method, I don't panic. I use the prototypal nature of JavaScript to look up to the next object up the prototype chain, the next object that I bonded this object to. Here we call it function store, and I can use the functionality that's stored there, the single version. We're going to walk through this line by line, see it all play out in full. But know that's fundamentally what we're doing. We're going to somehow make a bond to a shared function store in which all the functions that we'd want to have available on user 2, if we want to be able to do this dot increment, that's always our goal. But we don't want to have the increment function on user 2. So we're going to use the special prototypal nature, the special bonus feature of JavaScript. I think this is the last one. This is the last true bonus feature of JavaScript that lets us, when we access user 2 and don't find increment, go look at this function store through this special hidden bond. We're going to see how that hidden bond works, but first let's walk through this code line by line.